You already know your blood type from a donor card or medical record, type A, B, AB, or O. But what if I told you that those letters sitting in your DNA aren't just about blood transfusions? Scientists just discovered that if you're type A, you're 16% more likely to have a stroke before age 60. And if you're type O, you're actually protected by 12%. Your blood type might be silently predicting one of the deadliest events that can happen to your brain. When you think about stroke, you probably picture someone elderly, maybe in their 70s or 80s, and you'd be mostly right. 3 out of every 4 strokes happen in people over 65. But here's what's alarming: the number of young people having strokes is rising. We're talking about people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, people who should be decades away from worrying about this. Every year in the United States alone, nearly 800,000 people have a stroke. That's someone every 40 seconds. And when strokes happen to younger people, the consequences are devastating. Decades of potential disability, careers ended, families shattered. Dr. Stephen Kittner, a vascular neurologist at the University of Maryland, put it bluntly: these people are more likely to die from the life-threatening event, and survivors potentially face decades with disability. So researchers started asking, why? What's causing strokes in people who shouldn't be having them? And that's when they made a shocking discovery buried in our DNA, in the genes that determine something as basic as our blood type. A massive international study analyzed genetic data from nearly 620,000 people, including 17,000 who'd had strokes before age 60. And what they found changes everything we thought we knew about early stroke risk. Certain blood type genes don't just determine what kind of blood you can donate or receive. They actually influence how your blood clots, how your vessels function, and ultimately, whether you'll have a stroke decades before most people do. Today, we're breaking down exactly what they discovered, why your blood type matters for your brain, and what you can do if you're in the higher risk group. Because while you can't change your blood type, understanding your risk is the first step to protecting yourself. Before we dive into the stroke connection, let's make sure everyone understands what blood type actually is, because it's way more interesting than you might think. Your blood type is determined by tiny molecular markers called antigens that sit on the surface of your red blood cells. Think of these antigens as molecular ID badges. They're made of sugars and proteins, and they tell your immune system, this cell belongs here, don't attack it. The ABO blood group system, discovered over a century ago by Carl Landsteiner, identifies 4 major types based on which antigens you have. If you have A antigens, you're type A. B antigens, type B, both, type AB, neither, type O. Now your body produces antibodies against any antigens you don't have. So, if you're type A, your immune system makes antibodies against B antigens. This is why blood transfusions have to match. If you receive the wrong type, your immune system attacks the foreign blood cells, which can be fatal. But here's what most people don't know. Within each major blood type, there are subtle variations called subgroups. These arise from small mutations in the genes that code for those antigens. For example, type A can be further divided into A1 and A2 subgroups. The difference is tiny at the molecular level, but it turns out that difference matters for stroke risk. Your blood type is determined by genes you inherit from your parents, located on chromosome 9. These genes code for enzymes that build those sugar molecules on your blood cells. And this is where it gets really interesting. Those same genes don't just affect your red blood cells. They influence proteins throughout your entire body, including proteins involved in blood clotting. Globally, blood type distribution varies dramatically by population. About 40% of people worldwide are type A, 11% are type B, 4% are type AB, and 45% are type O. But these percentages shift depending on ancestry. In some populations, type O dominates. In others, type A is more common. Scientists have long known that blood type influences disease risk. People with type O blood, for example, are more susceptible to severe malaria, but they're less prone to heart disease. Type A individuals historically had higher rates of certain infections. Your blood type isn't just a transfusion detail, it's a window into your unique biological vulnerabilities. And now we know stroke belongs on that list, particularly for young people. But the relationship is more complex and more fascinating than anyone expected. Let's talk about the study itself, because the scale of this research is mind-blowing. This wasn't a small clinical trial at one hospital. This was an international genomic mega-analysis. Researchers combined data from 48 different genetic studies, spanning multiple countries: North America, Europe, Japan, Pakistan, and Australia. They analyzed nearly 17,000 people who'd had a stroke before age 60, and compared them to almost 600,000 people who hadn't. Everyone in the study was between 18 and 59 years old. They used a technique called a genome-wide association study, or GWAS. Imagine scanning millions of tiny genetic variations across someone's entire genome, all 3 billion letters of their DNA, and asking, which of these variations show up more often in people who had strokes? It's like searching for needles in a haystack, except the haystack is made of needles, and you're looking for the ones that are slightly shinier. The analysis revealed 2 locations in the genome strongly associated with early stroke risk. One of those locations was exactly where the genes for blood type sit. That wasn't a coincidence. Then, they did a second, more focused analysis, looking specifically at blood type gene variations. And that's when the pattern became crystal clear. People whose genes coded for the A1 subgroup had a 16% higher chance of having a stroke before age 60, compared to people with other blood types. 16% might not sound enormous, but in epidemiology that's significant. For context, it's comparable to the increased stroke risk from having mildly elevated blood pressure. This is a real, measurable effect. On the flip side, people with the O1 subgroup had a 12% lower risk of early stroke. They were protected. This makes sense when you understand that type O blood is already known to have lower risks of heart disease and blood clots. But here's where the study gets even more interesting. The researchers also looked at people who had strokes after age 60, about 9,300 stroke patients over 60, compared to 25,000 healthy controls in the same age group. And guess what? The blood type connection disappeared. The increased risk for type A blood was only significant for strokes happening before age 60. After that, blood type didn't seem to matter as much. This tells us something crucial. Early strokes and late strokes have different underlying causes. Dr. Kittner explained it this way: strokes in younger people are less likely to be caused by atherosclerosis. That's the buildup of fatty plaques in arteries that develops over decades. Instead, early strokes are more likely to be caused by problems with blood clotting, and that's where blood type comes in. The study also found that people with type B blood had about an 11% higher stroke risk compared to controls, and this held true regardless of age. So type B individuals face elevated risk throughout their lives, while type A risk is concentrated in younger years. Now, before anyone with type A blood panics, let me be clear about context. The researchers explicitly stated that the additional risk is small, and there's no need for extra vigilance or screening based solely on blood type. Remember, most strokes, about 75%, still happen in people over 65. Traditional risk factors like high blood pressure, smoking, diabetes, and inactivity are still far more important predictors. But the discovery is still important because it reveals a biological mechanism we didn't fully understand. And understanding mechanisms opens doors to prevention and treatment strategies we couldn't imagine before. So we know that type A blood, specifically the A1 subgroup, increases early stroke risk, and type O blood protects against it. But why? What's actually happening at the molecular level? The answer lies in blood clotting factors, proteins that circulate in your blood and control how quickly and effectively your blood forms clots. 2 of these proteins are particularly important: von Willebrand factor and factor VIII. Von Willebrand factor is like molecular Velcro. When a blood vessel is damaged, this protein helps platelets stick to the injury site and to each other, forming a plug. Factor VIII works alongside it, amplifying the clotting response. Together they're essential for stopping bleeding when you're injured. But, here's the problem. Too much of a good thing becomes dangerous. If you have elevated levels of von Willebrand factor and factor VIII, your blood becomes hypercoagulable. It clots too easily, and that increases your risk of abnormal clots forming where they shouldn't, like in the blood vessels supplying your brain. Multiple studies have shown that people with type A blood have higher levels of von Willebrand factor and factor VIII compared to people with type O blood. In fact, people with type O blood have about 25 to 30% lower levels of these clotting factors. That's a massive difference. Why does blood type affect these clotting proteins? Because the ABO gene doesn't just code for antigens on red blood cells. It influences the production and breakdown of various proteins throughout your body. The enzymes made by your blood type genes modify other proteins, including clotting factors. Here's a specific mechanism researchers have identified. People with type O blood clear von Willebrand factor from their bloodstream more quickly. It's like having a more efficient cleanup crew. Type A individuals, on the other hand, have slower clearance, so these clotting factors accumulate to higher levels. The research team statistically tested whether the genetic signals associated with early stroke overlapped with signals for von Willebrand factor, Factor VIII, and venous thromboembolism. That's blood clots in veins like deep vein thrombosis. They found strong evidence that the same genetic variants in the ABO region affect all of these traits. It's not a coincidence. It's a shared biological pathway. This also explains why type A blood has been associated with other clotting disorders. Previous studies found links between the ABO locus and coronary artery calcification, which restricts blood flow to the heart, and heart attack risk. The story keeps expanding. Your blood type affects how your entire cardiovascular system functions. Now, strokes come in two main varieties. Ischemic strokes, which account for about 87% of all strokes, happen when a blood clot blocks an artery in the brain, cutting off blood supply. Hemorrhagic strokes happen when a blood vessel ruptures and bleeds into the brain. The blood type connection is specifically with ischemic strokes, the clot-caused ones. When a clot blocks an artery in your brain, the tissue downstream from that blockage starts dying within minutes. Brain cells are incredibly hungry for oxygen and glucose. Cut off their blood supply and they start to die faster than cells anywhere else in your body. Time is brain. Every second counts. The symptoms depend on which part of the brain is affected. If the clot blocks an artery, feeding the motor cortex, you might lose movement on one side of your body. If it's the language center, you might lose the ability to speak. Vision, memory, coordination, any function can be lost depending on where the stroke occurs. And here's the tragic part. Many young people don't recognize stroke symptoms or don't seek help quickly enough because they think, I'm too young for a stroke. But strokes don't check your ID. If you have the biological risk factors, and blood type is now confirmed as one of them, stroke can happen at any age. Okay, so now you know the science. If you're type A, especially the A1 subgroup, you have a moderately increased risk of early stroke. If you're type O, you're somewhat protected. The question is, what do you do with this information? First, and I can't stress this enough, don't panic. The researchers were very clear that the additional risk from type A blood is small. Most people with type A blood will never have a stroke. This isn't a death sentence. It's one piece of information among many that contribute to your overall risk profile. Think of it like this. Imagine your stroke risk is a bucket, and various factors are water being poured into that bucket. Type A blood adds a small amount of water, but high blood pressure? That's a fire hose. Smoking? Another fire hose. Diabetes, obesity, physical inactivity, all major contributors. The type of your blood is just one factor, and it's not even close to the biggest one. The good news is that unlike your blood type, most major stroke risk factors are modifiable. You can change them. Let's talk about what actually makes the biggest difference. Number 1, blood pressure control. High blood pressure is the single biggest risk factor for stroke at any age. If you have type A blood and high blood pressure, you're combining a genetic predisposition with a major environmental risk. Get your blood pressure checked regularly. If it's high, work with your doctor to bring it down through medication, diet, and lifestyle changes. Number 2, quit smoking. Smoking roughly doubles your stroke risk. It damages blood vessel walls, increases clot formation, and raises blood pressure. If you have type A blood and you smoke, you're stacking risks in the worst possible way. Number 3, manage diabetes. High blood sugar damages blood vessels over time, making strokes more likely. Keep your blood sugar under control through diet, exercise, and medication if needed. Number 4, maintain a healthy weight and stay physically active. Exercise strengthens your cardiovascular system, improves blood flow, and reduces clot formation. Aim for at least 150 minutes of moderate activity per week. Brisk walking counts. Number 5, eat a heart-healthy diet. This means plenty of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and lean proteins. Limit saturated fats, trans fats, and excess sodium. The Mediterranean diet, in particular, has strong evidence for reducing stroke risk. Number 6. Limit alcohol consumption. Excessive drinking increases stroke risk. If you drink, keep it moderate. No more than 1 drink per day for women, 2 for men. Now, should you get genetic testing to determine your exact blood type subgroup? The researchers say no. Standard blood type testing tells you whether you're A, B, AB, or O, but it doesn't usually distinguish between subgroups like A1 and A2. Genetic testing for subgroups is possible, but not routinely done, and it's not currently recommended for stroke risk assessment because the risk increase is relatively small. What is important is knowing your overall risk profile. If you have type A blood and you also have high blood pressure, diabetes, a family history of stroke, or other risk factors, talk to your doctor about comprehensive stroke prevention. You might benefit from aspirin therapy, statins, or other interventions that reduce clot formation. Learn the stroke warning signs because rapid treatment saves lives and brain function. Remember the acronym FACE-T: face drooping, arm weakness, speech difficulty, time to call 911. Other symptoms include sudden severe headache, vision problems, dizziness, or trouble walking. If you or someone around you experiences these symptoms, don't wait to see if they get better. Call emergency services immediately. Clot-busting drugs can dissolve the blockage, but they have to be given within hours of symptom onset. There's a saying in neurology, time is brain. The faster you get treatment, the more brain tissue you can save. For younger adults, those under 60, this research is especially relevant. If you're in this age group and you have type A blood, consider it motivation to be extra vigilant about modifiable risk factors. You might have a slightly higher genetic baseline risk, but you have decades to prevent that risk from becoming reality through healthy lifestyle choices. And here's something hopeful. This research opens the door to future targeted interventions. Now that we know blood type affects clotting factor levels, scientists can develop strategies specifically for high-risk groups. Maybe that's personalized anticoagulant therapy, or new drugs that specifically target the pathways connecting blood type to clot formation. Personalized medicine is becoming reality. This study is part of a bigger revolution happening in medicine right now. We're moving beyond the one-size-fits-all approach to healthcare and toward precision medicine, where your unique genetic makeup helps guide your prevention and treatment strategies. A century ago, discovering blood types saved millions of lives by making transfusions safe. Now, that same blood type system is revealing hidden risks and protections for diseases like stroke. Your blood type isn't just about what kind of blood you can receive. It's a window into your cardiovascular biology, your clotting tendency, your unique vulnerabilities. The fact that this connection only appears in early strokes tells us something profound. The biology of disease changes across the lifespan. What causes a stroke at 40 is different from what causes a stroke at 70, and that means prevention strategies should be different too. This research also highlights how much we still don't know. The study was massive, nearly 620,000 participants, but it was still relatively limited. Most participants were of European ancestry. We need larger, more diverse studies to understand how these genetic effects play out across different populations and ethnic backgrounds. The patterns might be different in other groups, and we still don't fully understand the mechanism. We know type A blood correlates with higher clotting factor levels, but we don't know all the intermediate steps. Future research will uncover more of this biological chain, potentially revealing new intervention points. What we do know is this: your genes are not your destiny. Yes, type A blood increases your early stroke risk by 16%, but smoking increases it by much more. High blood pressure increases it by much more. Diabetes, obesity, inactivity, all bigger factors, and all of those are things you can change. Genetics loads the gun. Lifestyle pulls the trigger. You can't change your blood type, but you can absolutely change the other factors that turn genetic risk into actual disease. Something as simple as your blood type, a trait you've had since conception, can influence your risk of one of the most devastating medical events possible. That's the power of genetics, but knowing your risk is the first step to preventing it from becoming reality. If you have type A blood, don't panic. Take it as motivation to control the factors you can control. Check your blood pressure. Stay active. Eat well. Don't smoke. Know the warning signs of stroke. You have decades to prevent this from ever affecting you. If you have type O blood, don't get complacent. You have some genetic protection, but you can still lose it through poor lifestyle choices. The same preventive measures apply to everyone. And regardless of your type of blood, share this information. Someone you love might have type A blood and not know about this research. Someone you know might be experiencing stroke symptoms right now and not realize it. Education saves lives. If you found this deep dive into genetic risk factors fascinating, if you want to stay informed about cutting-edge research that could affect your health, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We break down the latest discoveries in genetics, medicine, and human biology every single week. Drop a comment below and let me know. What's your blood type? Did this research change how you think about stroke risk? Do you have questions about prevention strategies? This community is here to learn together, so share your thoughts. Thanks for watching Mind and Marvel, where we uncover the hidden science written in your DNA. Remember, your genes are not your fate. Knowledge is power, and prevention is possible. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and take control of your health.